Dun, 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 dun.
Some trends never died, even if you thought they did. They were just halted and paused by extrinsic circumstances. I'm sure not, of their own desire, of course, but this was one trend that was happening pre-2020 at least. We had the era of the Stephen King movies everywhere. From every major studio, pretty much. Except for, really not Disney, though. They still haven't done a Stephen King movie yet, as far as I'm aware. But there's been some pretty strong releases. I mean, as I've said, I've never read a Stephen King book yet. I started reading one, but I had to return it because of the release date. I never really got into it. I think it was called The Invitation? Was that the name of it? It was one of his newer ones. I tried it. I'll pull up a book cover and reference in case I'm wrong. But from what I've heard, again, he's a very talented writer. I would believe that based on the adaptations I've seen of a lot of his work, some of which, I haven't watched. Others I've tried. Some have been very interesting. But I think the guy has written a lot of phenomenal stories. I mean, I still have to read his memoir, too. That's been on my bucket list for a long while to read On Writing a Memoir, I think is the title of it. But from some of the adaptations I've seen, of course, revered movies like The Shining, or ones that I would classify like Gerald's Game. Gerald's Game is such an underappreciated film. Adult movie, to be clear, because I have younger viewers on this channel, but it is such a good film. I wish it weren't on Netflix. I'm still in my Cuties boycott, and I want to go rewatch that. But anyway, it's a shame, because that movie is absolutely phenomenal. But I pretty much, I think, like that a little more than The Shining, to be honest with you. And The Shining is a very good film. But, of course, there's many more movies he's done, some of which, maybe on some of the streaming services today, others are big major releases. And there's been plenty that, again, have gotten noteworthy praise. The guy is a very talented horror writer. Now we have Firestarter, which this isn't the first remake. We've had a couple with Stephen King thus far, notably It, which did very well as Pet Sematary, which I've seen both. And I do think with that one, the original was, the newer one was good in parts. It just wasn't to the magnitude of the original. And the original was a very sinister movie, but it is a scary film, and it's still since 1980. I think it was like 1984, wasn't it? That came out like way back though. Like if I'm wrong on the year, maybe it's around that general time frame. But that is a incredibly scary film. But this isn't the first reboot project, because this film also had its baseline written with a 1984 film, and this is again a readaptation of the novel going by the same identity. And I did a general perusing of the film from a plot perspective, so I kind of have a bit of a gist. But for those of you who are not familiar with the project, I'll pull up the IMDb synopsis, and let's look at that first, actually, before we watch the trailer together, just to give you a general baseline if you're not familiar with the contents of Firestarter. A young girl tries to understand how she mysteriously gained the power to set things on fire with her mind. So basically, she's a pyrokinetic, essentially. As somebody who's a comic book movie fan, that's sort of a, immediately I noticed that, like, hey, that's kind of like almost a superpower type, like a gifted individual sort of thing. But I will say, for me, I mean, the story sounded kind of interesting from what I saw. And I don't know. I'm fascinated to see how maybe it plays in the film. But the casting is a bit of a draw for me because, I'm a huge Zac Efron fan. And he's starring here, as well as many other names that I don't think I recognize at a first glance. He is the immediate draw for me. But I'm sure they'll all be talented. The poster looks pretty ominous. I mean, pretty cool, though. I like the way... It's sort of like that, wow, this is probably do a little bit better than Dark Phoenix, I would imagine, but sort of has like that Phoenix-like pattern of somebody that's just kind of bursting with flaming energy. Again, she kind of has that appearance. I just thought it was pretty cool looking at the poster. And this is a Blumhouse movie who I don't always like all their films, because again, I'm generally mixed on horror. Because, I have a lot of conditions going in as somebody who, I'm not a big gore person. But, I mean, I love scary stories. But just gore, it kind of just makes me feel sick sometimes. So if it's, like, artistically done, it's done in a limited fashion. It's usually, like, a we'll see situation. I'm also not big in, like, all the supernatural stuff, especially when it gets, like, to the occult. As a Christian, that kind of just is an automatic deterrent for me. But I have to say, a lot of the Stephen King films I've seen haven't gone that direction necessarily. And even the ones that maybe I have been relatively tame for the most part. But I really do enjoy Stephen King projects for the most part. Again, he's such a good writer. Let's go ahead and take a look at the main trailer for this new reboot. Will this have the... I don't know. Again, like I said, Pet Sematary was good. But the reboot was not necessarily to the magnitude of the original, even though, again, there were parts that were really well done. It didn't hit that note, right? Just not for me. Maybe this will do better. This is, I believe, a Universal film as well. But as I said, as I was saying with Blumhouse, I forgot to end that. Some films I haven't watched, and some of the ones I have haven't been as good. Like Black Christmas was weird. But the ones that I remember, I've really liked. Like Halloween. Love that film. That film was done so. In fact, actually, speaking of Halloween as well, this also has a similar release structure than like Halloween Kills did, because this is also, I believe, debuting in theaters and on Peacock, both simultaneous releases. Very interesting. Universal's picked that method. I don't know. They're still going with it, because most of our studios are picking like a certain day window, right? You have the film for a number of days within the film side or the theater experience, and then you get it on a streaming service. You get it like, pay for rent essentially. That's interesting that maybe there's a bit of a diversion here, that they would instead like debut on Peacock the same day. Yeah, it is the same day. Interesting. We're going to go ahead and watch the main trailer for this first. I'll talk about it more in my condensed review segment. If I was watching the video together, I hope this is like the other Blumhouse films that I remember that I've really liked. Here we go. Let's take a look at this. Let me get it ready. Okay.
Daddy.
What's going on, sweetie?
Something feels weird. Something's changing.
You remember the tools we taught you, right?
I can buy Zac Efron as a dad.
Paper.
I think that's the role he's playing.
Wait.
Everything okay, Charlie?
It happened again.
What happened?
The bad thing.
If you ever start to lose control, what do you do?
It didn't work. She's not a robot, Annie. She's a little girl. With little girl emotions, which are wildly unpredictable. Charlie?
She just has to shove it down and keep it hidden.
Our responsibility is getting her ready.
Our responsibility is to protect her.
Charlie?
If they catch her, they're gonna put her in a cage.
Charlie?
They're gonna run tests on her for the rest of her life. We'll never see her
It's a
again.
very well shot film. Very grounded.
If who catches me?
Something's happened. I need it handled with discretion. And I need her back alive.
Do you know what it means?
Yeah, that's a film to mention. That was excellent.
I hate living like this.
You're special,
Charlie. I'm not special. I'm a monster.
Wow.
I want to help her.
You want to use her.
Charlie? Don't be stupid.
Where's Mommy?
Do you feel that? Let her go or it's gonna get a lot worse.
Where's Mommy? Tell me now.
She's the first of her kind. A real life superhero.
This looks good. I mean, again, like I've seen this type of film,
Can't be a reaction.
notably again within the comic book space to different extremes. This type of story,
That's the only
very
way to
ominous stuff.
control
I love this sort of like horror diversion.
She's becoming a young woman,
I'm not going to jail.
and someday soon,
it. You're gonna change the world.
she may be capable of a nuclear explosion.
I hope not. She seems like a very delightful girl. You prefer to keep her, alive, right?
The whole world going to hell.
Promise me that you'll never use your gifts to hurt people.
I'll only hurt bad people, I promise.
Trust me, Charlie. You don't have to be afraid. Please, I can help you.
Liar, liar. Pants on fire. I don't want to hurt anyone. But it feels kind of good.
Wow. That shot sort of had a bit of an 80s look to it. It's just the lighting of that. Wow. That looks very interesting. Again, like I said, well, actually, I don't know if I mentioned it. I said I haven't read many Stephen King books at all. I just kind of started making a first entrance. I have not read Firestarter. So the story, I'd open this question up to you. For those of you who are knowledgeable in like Stephen King books more so than I am, would you recommend I go into this movie? I toss this up with other films as well. Like, should I watch the movie first, or it's a book adaptation? Should I read the book? What would you say I should do? Should I watch this film on May 13th? I anticipate we'll get another trailer at some point, so I'll be able to cover this again, because that trailer looked really good. But would you say that I should wait to read the book and watch the movie first, or should I read the book first to lead me into watching the movie? I'd be open to either. And again, I've picked different scenarios for this. There's not really a set in stone thing that I do. For example, Hillbilly Elegy. I haven't seen the film yet, but I read the book in advance of covering that one. Or with Dune, that was the opposite. Dune, I watched the film first in theaters. I haven't read the book yet, but I still want to. It's on my list at some point. What would you say I should do in this case? Because I'm open to pretty much any either way of going about it. But I do want to experience the story, particularly in the film version. Actually, to open that up as well, because there was an original release. Should I watch the first film in advance, or should I go in fresh? I don't know how well that one did. I guess I can look it up right now while apparently a miniseries followed it too. Interesting. I could see potential for why that would come about. What was the reception to it? Let me see. Oh, it didn't do very well. Well, what would you recommend I do? I don't know. You decide for me. I'll judge by the comment section, kind of where the main consensus falls. But this film has a lot of potential. I think the acting is good. Zac Efron. I like, by the way, the father-daughter dynamic. It's very well depicted here. I love the emotions in the relationship, and I can certainly see. I can see it there and present. The young girl's acting too. I don't know how old she is, but she's really captivating. This particular type of story, I like the horror side to it. I like that angle, even though, again, I feel that there's an element of familiarity, notably, again, with different comic book properties that have a similar, or not even just necessarily comic book properties, but that baseline of you've got a gifted child who has some sort of superhuman ability, and there's bad people after her, or him, I guess. We've seen different types of stories. X-Men rings a bell. The Darkest Minds rings a bell. There's films that have that nature to their story. So maybe for some people it doesn't come across as the freshest, but I like the horror angle, especially since you have a girl who obviously is not comfortable with her abilities, right? Because at one point she says, I forget what she says, but she refers to herself as I'm not a monster. And you buy that performance. It's very extreme. She's very aggressive in her tonality, and I love that. But this looks really impressive. And for any girl that can make a crow combust, I mean, poor bird, but wow. Ominous release. Lot of potential with the Blumhouse branding and Stephen King's attribution. This should be very enticing. What are your guys' thoughts? Maybe it could be better than the original. Who knows? This could be the opposite of Pet Sematary, in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts down below, what you think about Firestarter. Don't forget all the good stuff with subscribing, the sharing, that bell, until we get to watch more of this film, because again, this isn't coming out for a while. I anticipate another trailer at some point down the road. I will see you guys at whatever point that happens to be, but for now, thanks for watching this video. I love you guys. Don't forget to love yourselves and your fellow man. God bless. Peace.